Before we start with the build, I am going to tell you why is this so broken, powerful, and yeah, basically the most powerful character that you are going to be able to build in the entirety of Baldur's Gate. First and foremost, there's two very broken characters that people likes to make in the 5th edition tabletop of Dungeons and Dragons, and that is the Sorcadin and the Hexadin. And people usually asks, what is better? What should I be building for my character, a Sorcadin or a Hexadin, and what is the difference? Well, the difference from a Sorcadin and a Hexadin is that the Sorcadin is going to be able to upcast many more Divine Smites than the Hexadin is going to do. Hence, it's going to have more damage, and also he's going to get more spell slots. Specifically, the one that we are building right here, it has a level 1, a level 5 1 spell slot, 3 level 4s, and 3 level 3s, and 3 level 2s. Meaning that you can spam your Divine Smites like a maniac, and trust me, if you build your character properly, these guys can one-shot a whole bunch of things. So you're basically going to be one-shotting the hell out of everything, and you're just going to be swapping back and forth in between characters. But if that's so good, and also when it comes to the defensive side, if you notice that I did not mention the level 1 spell slots, is because the level 1 spell slots, we use them for shields. Shield is a spell that functions as a reaction, gives you +5 armor class whenever an enemy manages to bypass the attack roll on you, meaning that if you have, for example, the case that we have right here, 21 of armor class, that's 26 armor class, and that lasts for the entire duration of the turn that the shield got active. So ideally you have 5 more points into armor class, provided that you always have that level 1 spell slot, and you can upcast it, but it's not going to do anything. So that's basically the gist of everything when it comes to the Sorcadin. The Hexadin uses a very similar kind of thinking, but it also takes advantage of the darkness spell. And what that does, which we'll dive into it right now, what that does is that it basically blinds everything that's inside of your magical darkness. Spells, projectiles, arrows, nothing can pierce through the darkness, meaning that while you are inside of it, nothing can touch you. The only thing that can reach you while you are inside of the magical darkness is going to be enemies throwing grenades and stuff at you. So a Hexadin is a very powerful choice in here, because you can enhance your Eldritch Blasts with your Charisma. But it doesn't have as much destructive power when it comes to melee as the Sorcadin has. Now, while you are inside of that darkness, like I mentioned, you're basically immune to any single spell that anyone wants to throw at you, because nothing can pierce it. And this actually generates a lot of confusion in the Baldur's Gate 3 community, because there are differences from the tabletop and how they develop things here on Baldur's Gate. A lot of people believe that darkness is not actually that powerful, because a lot of enemies have dark vision and superior dark vision. No, superior dark vision and dark vision are not enough for the enemies to bypass that darkness. Remember that anything melee that's fighting inside of that darkness is blinded, meaning that they have disadvantage against you and you have advantage against them, meaning that your attack rolls are always going to be higher, and you're always most likely, if you have something like a great weapon fighting, you're never going to have that much of a disadvantage on your character because of that. And going back into the superior dark vision and the dark vision, yes, about let's say 50% of the enemies in the game, like undead and things, have superior dark vision, but they are not enough for them to bypass that magical darkness. The only way that you can use to bypass the magical darkness, and this is something that the Hexadin does, is by using Devil's Sight. every demon has Devil Sight. There are not many demons, demon enemies throughout a playthrough on Baldur's Gate, so yes, using Darkness, for example, on Raphael's house is not really that effective because all you're going to be fighting in that, it's going to be demons. So yes, demons can bypass the magical darkness, but you're talking about like 10% of the enemies that you're fighting in the game. Everything else is going to basically trivialize the game because nothing can quite literally touch you. So that was the difference on why a Hexadin or a Sorcadin should be chosen. However, with this new patch, we have the Shadow Sorcerer, the Shadow Magic Sorcerer. And he basically is the best of both worlds. Now, thanks to this character, we can actually explain that a little bit more because you will get superior dark vision, which allows you to see in the dark up to 24 meters away. This is superior dark vision that you can get as a passive bonus by going into the sorcerer routes. But then again, the way that Larian managed to balance things out and to make everything different for the sorcerer to actually be able to cast spells from inside towards the outside of the darkness, because that's something that you cannot do. You cannot cast spells from outside towards from inside towards outside, but nothing can come inside towards from outside towards the inside, and yeah, vice versa. As you will be able to see right here, because even though that I have the eyes of the darkness, this is superior dark vision. Have that in mind. If I cast a regular darkness, I am going to be blinded, and for me to be able to cast a spell, I need to go outside from that darkness for me to be able to cast it. That's also true for any cantrip that I want to use. You will see that my character has to walk out first from that darkness for it to be able to cast something, because nothing can come inside, nothing can go outside from here. The difference being is that the sorcerer actually got the eyes of the dark, and this is a very specific darkness from the sorcerer, that if I cast this, you will see that I am no longer blinded, I am immune to blinded, and if I want to cast a spell from inside towards outside of the darkness, I can still do so, but no one else can cast spells from outside towards the inside, so I'm immune to range, to arrows. No arrows can come inside here. There are no spells that can come inside here, and also I believe that even if the enemy has Devil Sight, the arrows, for example, are still going to get lost in that darkness. So the only enemies that benefit from that Devil Sight are going to be melee attacking enemies. If I want to use a cantrip from inside towards the outside, I am going to be able to do so, and I'm also going to be able to do so with advantage because I have attacking from the shadows. So you basically have a Sorcadin that's a Hexadin that excels at one-shotting things because of how much upcasting that you can do with your smites. But also you have that specific, it's not as good as the Hexadin because the Hexadin can add the charisma modifier to the cantrip, but still, like, this is a battle of attrition where you can still kill things by just throwing cantrips at them if you have ranged enemies that are attacking you from a distance. Now, I've already taken too much of your time, so here's the level progression that you are going to need, and I'm going to kind of rapid fire run you through everything that you are going to be needing to set this up. But I do want to talk about the ability score, the ability points, because the ability points are going to change depending on the gear that you have, because we're going to review the itemization in a little while, but depending on you having the Amulet of Constitution, having the Gauntlets of Heal Giant Strength, like you can see me having right in here, it's going to be dependent on the act that you're on and the ability scores that you are going to have. So for example, Dexterity is going to be kind of good for our initiative. So on the first act of the game, everything should be a little bit more balanced. On the first act of the game, we are going to downgrade our saving throws on quite a whole bunch of stuff right in here. We want to have 16 strength, and we also want to have a somewhat of a different constitution, but also charisma. So these are going to be our main stats once we are at the beginning of the game, and then we can raise our points right in here kind of a little bit, and that's it. And this is how your character should be looking like if you are on the first act of the game. On the second act of the game, you actually have access to the gloves of dexterity, so you can lower your dexterity and then place some extra points into different things for, to have the extra saving throws. But once you are in the end game, this is how your stats should be looking like. Now, for the level progression, it's going to be somewhat tricky. Let me first give you the recommendations and how your playthrough should be looking like, whether you start on one thing. People always ask me, it says, this is a build for the end game. How about the early game, the mid game? How is this going to perform? It's going to perform just fine, dude. Because on the first region of the game, you have 5 levels of Paladin, dude. That's very powerful. 5 levels into a Paladin on the first region of the game, it's something very, very powerful. However, if you want to be broken from the very start of the game and you want to solo things, my advice is that you go first into Sorcerer. At level 3, that's when you are going to receive, I believe, if I am not mistaken, that's when you are going to receive your specific magical darkness from your Sorcerer. At that time, you can just bulk into your darkness and then go through the Goblin camp, cast the darkness right in there, kill everything, wait for everything to die. So yeah, at level, that's going to be very powerful. Regardless of how you start, this is how your character should be looking like. A level 1 Paladin is going to be any class. It's not going to matter. That's not consequential. A level 2 Paladin, you can have a little bit of a concession in here. I chose great weapon fighting because you're always going to have advantage against lighted enemies. That's amazing for the great weapon master that you are going to be taking later on. Any spell should be taken in here, although I do advise for you to use Shield of Faith, especially if you're not going to be going into the Sorcerer route, so that you have +2 points into your armor class. That's always useful. But if you also want to be using a shield, which is overkill, like you're going to end up having 30 armor class on top of always having advantage and disadvantages on the enemies that you're fighting because of the darkness, that's very powerful as well. And you're not going to suffer that much damage because most of the damage comes not only from the weapon, but from upcasting your smites. On a level 3 Paladin, nothing is going to change. On a level 4 Paladin, you are going to select a new feat, which is going to be the 2 points more into Charisma. This could be interchange. It can either be Great Weapon Master or Charisma. At level 5, you get the extra attack, and then a Paladin level 6 gets the extra aura protection, which is very useful. This is something that you can use solo, but also if you're playing on party, you have a crew, then this is something that could give extra saving throws to your allies. It's something very powerful. And then for the Sorcerer levels that you are going to be taking, the first thing that you need to have in mind is that you are going to take the Shadow Sorcerer and that you're going to take Shield. Shield is the one that I mentioned that is going to be giving you +5 armor class at any given time, anytime that an enemy manages to bypass your already huge armor class with their attack rolls. And then the Sorcerer level 2, nothing is going to change. It's going to ask for you to the sorcery kind of playstyle, the twin spells, the extended spells. You're not going to be using any of that because that's not what we want the Sorcerer for. Level 3 gives us Misty Step, which is very, very useful. But also, at this point, you already have your Magical Darkness, which is going to be the gist of everything that you are going to be using with your character. At level 4, you either, if you chose the Great Weapon Master or the Charisma, could be interchanged in here. Nothing is going to change at level 5 and nothing is going to change at level 6. You're going to receive the Hound of Ill Omen. However, I advise for you not to use that because you want to save your sorcery points to be casting your darkness throughout the entirety of the fights that you are on at that time. That said, let's rapid fire to the equipment that we're using with this character. Remember that there's recommendations for every single act that you find in the game, linked in the video description. The armor, any plated armor that gives you the highest armor class. It doesn't have to be anything specific. I'm not using the Helldusk armor right in here because I like to use that on someone that is not proficient with heavy armor. And here we just want the plated armor, so there's that. The Helldusk boots that allows us to traverse through the difficult terrain. This is in the event that they throw like a frost grenade or something, that enemies are throwing something inside of the darkness and they are causing us to trip. We do not want for that to happen. The Gauntlets of Heal Giant Strength, that's self-explanatory. We have the Killer Sweetheart to have critical hits on demand. We have the Strange Conduit Ring. We're always concentrated on our darkness, meaning that we're always receiving 1d4 psychic damage, extra little cheeky DPS in that. And then the Amulet of Greater Health that allows us to sustain the concentration. Then again, we're not going to receive that much damage, but this is like an extra safety in case things go sour later on in the game. And so the general gist of the gameplay with this character is that you want to cast the darkness ideally on a position that you have advantage against the enemy, like higher ground or things like that. Have in mind that also that if you cast the darkness and then start attacking people, they are going to take a while for them to notice you, especially if you are inside there, and you're going to bypass stealth checks because they can quite literally not see you. So that's hilarious, and that's something very useful. But ideally, also what you want to do is that anytime that an enemy gets close to you and they have the disadvantage because of the blind, you're going to be smithing the hell out of them. And for the ranged enemies, the sorcerers, the rangers, and everything else, you're just going to be basically spamming. If you have spare points, there are no more melee characters that you can use your smites against, then yes, you can throw cheeky spells in the if you so desire to. But if you do not want to be wasting like resources, my advice is that you use regular cantrips and kill them and start spamming them until they die. If you like the content, like and never super appreciate it. No still you that you gorgeous beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join the Discord. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.